Hello guys, what is happening and welcome to this live stream. So in today's live stream, we are talking about unemployment, which is starting to rise in the US and Canada. So is this something significant, and what can we expect to happen, and what can we expect moving forward and looking into the future? I know, talking about the future, everyone's scared to talk about that. They risk being made wrong, but I will happily accept being wrong, but you have to just go with the probabilities. So anyway, guys, please hit that like button. It greatly helps get these videos out on the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if this sort of talk is important to you. So we're going to be diving into the data from Canada and the US, and also something I only just literally checked, that's why I was a few minutes late getting on this live stream today, was the last time that Canada had 3 months of employment losses where it was net negative on the balance between the amount gained in employment and lost in employment, was in 2008. Yeah, you got that right, in 2008. It's like, you know, everything that we go through, there's some connection to 2008. You know, I just saw US mortgage rates this week, I think it was yesterday, hit the highest level since 2008. But everybody is thinking that this time is different. Yeah, it is different. It's a lot freaking worse. That's the real klutz of it. Anyway, let's get into this and see where the jobs were lost, what is going on. So, all right, let's see what's in here then. So, employment declined by 40,000. This is Stats Canada, so it's the government and their labor force survey for August 2022. This follows 2 months of losses in employment. Now, even though the unemployment rate has only just started to tick up, the reason why it didn't go up on the prior 2 months were because the labor force participation rate was going down, offsetting it. And this is how this unemployment is. So, I mean, the unemployment rate is not very accurate, put it that way. There's been many changes to it. Anyways, let's see what they're saying here. So, unemployment declined by 40,000 in August, and the unemployment rate rose by 0.5% to 5.4%. Okay, so the reason why I'm skipping past all this stuff is because it goes into it in more details here. So, employment gains in various industries, including other services, plus 15,000, plus 2.2%. I'm guessing this is year over year. And professional, scientific and technical services jobs, they added 14,000, nearly 1%, were more than offset by declines in educational services, minus 50,000, 3.3%, and construction, minus 28,000, minus 1.8%. So the interesting thing about this is the first survey that I've seen where construction jobs have been lost. And this is perhaps the start of the real unemployment beginning in the housing market. Well, not in the housing market, but in sectors related to the housing market. So there's only so long that they can keep going, and it really tells a story of health of these companies as well. If they have to get rid of people, it shows that they need to slim down and they need to perhaps pay their bills. You know, interest rates have gone up. There's a lot of pressures that are affecting construction companies and building companies and everything like that. So it's interesting. There were fewer public sector employees in August, minus 28,000, while the number of employees in the private sector and the number of self-employed workers held steady. Now, don't get your hopes up about that, because when you read the full report, you'll see below that actually year over year, the government is still massively bigger than it was last year. So even though they lost jobs, they're still monumentally larger than they were the year before. So anyways, employment fell in British Columbia, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia, while it increased in Quebec. There was little change in the other provinces. The unemployment rate was 5.4% in August, up 0.5 percentage points from the record low of 4.9% observed in June and July, which is hilarious because during those months they were actually net losing jobs. So, I mean, it's just, this is how broken the unemployment numbers are. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, the adjusted unemployment rate, which includes people who wanted a job but did not look for a job, rose 0.5% to 7.3% in August due to the rise in the number of unemployed. In August, and this is really, really interesting, this is why I've highlighted this in cyan here, is in August, more than 1 in 10, 11.9%, of permanent employees were planning to leave their job within the next 12 months, 5.5 percentage points higher than in January 2022. So people are more sick of their job than they were during the cerveza sickness and everything. So why do you think that is? Well, there's got to be a number of contributing factors, and they actually tell us below. So I'll skip past that because it goes into it in more detail below. There were 307,000 Canadians in August who had left their job in order to retire at some point in the last year, up from 233,000 1 year earlier and 273,000 in August 2019, not seasonally adjusted in brackets. The unemployment rate for immigrants who had arrived in Canada within the past 5 years was lower in August 2022, 7.6%, than in any month of August since comparable data became available in 2006. 3-month moving average, not seasonally adjusted. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because, this is something we've said on this channel for a long, long time, that immigrants, they earn less money, they have higher unemployment than the rest of the labor force, so they are the more risky group of people. So everybody has been pointing to immigration as the reason for the housing boom, and that just isn't the case. And you better hope it's not the case, because if it is the case, well, then the housing market is built on nothing, because essentially these immigrants are the riskiest type of people those banks want to lend to. Now, the fact is they'll lend to anybody, and I don't want to give away another video it's another live stream that I've been meaning to get done for ages and ages and ages, and I've just got so many things backed up that I need to do. And basically it's about the Ontario government and how they're actually actively involved in basically selling subprime mortgages to immigrants. Would you believe it? But it is the truth, and I verified it. And it was a mortgage broker that reached out to me and said, "Hey Luke, I would love to put this out there on the public forum, but I cannot. Can you take a look at this?" And they basically alerted me to the fact that this is going on. And it really is going on. And it's really, it's going to blow people away. It'll probably, I mean, I wish that a video like that would get so many views. So it exposes the complete ridiculousness, if that is even a word, of what is going on. But it won't, and I just have to accept that. But anyway, that is just, it's insane. But I don't want to get too much off topic and into that. But that is coming. Don't let me forget. The unemployed, we already covered that. So employment down among public sector employees, little changed in the private sector. Employment among public sector employees fell 28,000 for the second consecutive month in August, while both the number of private sector employees and the number of self-employed workers were little unchanged. And then it basically says how on a year-over-year basis, public sector employment is nearly 4% up, 157,000 more. And private sector employees is just 3.4%. So basically, the public sector is still growing faster than the private sector, which is just absolutely nuts. But this is what you get when you vote for governments that just literally want more government, more bureaucracy, more red tape. I mean, Canada is a country of just constant bureaucracy and rules. I mean, the UK is bad. I thought the UK was awful. And then I came to Canada and I was like, wow, this is, I mean, having dealt with citizenship and immigration, you know, I've dealt with most agencies in Canada and they are just a absolute joke to deal with. And they just frustrate me every time. And, you know, it's like, if they owe you money, heaven forbid that, because trying to get that money back is like trying to get blood out of a stone. It's just, yeah. Anyways, the public sector includes employees in federal, provincial, territorial, municipal, and indigenous public administrations, as well as crown corporations and other government institutions such as schools, including universities, hospitals, and public libraries. Since February 2020, public sector employment has increased by 339,000, 8.7%, looking at the three industries in which the vast majority of workers are public sector employees. Total employment growth over this period was 139,000 in public administration, 48,000 in educational services, 12,000 in utilities, and in the health and social assistance industry, which continues to experience strong labor demand and which just under half, 47.3% of workers are public sector employees. Total employment grew by 67,000, 2.6% from February 2020 to August 2022. So despite everything that has happened and the pressures on healthcare, they have grown the labor force 2.6% since 2020. I mean, that's just an abysmal number. You would expect that to be like 10 or 20%. But the fact is, you know, America is going to suck away most of the talent, unfortunately, away from countries like Canada, and countries like the UK are going to continually struggle with healthcare. And the healthcare system is really, really broken in Canada. I mean, one of my friends, he was recently getting a hip replacement, and he was telling me how he would have to have waited years if he got it done in Alberta, but he was able to get it done in months within Ontario. And that's just the differences between different provinces. But, you know, it is vastly different between province and province in Canada. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And healthcare is important, you know. It's very, very important. And the healthcare is pretty terrible in Canada. And the fact is, the waiting times and everything are just very, very long. A lot of people end up going private anyways. You know, it's just kind of madness when you think about it, because you pay all this money through your taxes, because it's not free. It's not even free. Like, there's a lot of things that you have to pay for, which a lot of people don't realize with, you know, Canadian healthcare. It's not free. You still pay for a lot of services, and you pay through your taxes, and still, like, access to healthcare is not that great. The quality of care is not that great. The actual wait times for surgeries are very, very high. When I was looking last, about, I think it was 6 months ago, maybe it was a year ago, time flies so quickly. But I was looking at all the stats for different provinces and how far behind they were with all these different surgeries. And it was ridiculous. They were all like behind their targets, like 100 to 200%. Some provinces worse than others. Alberta was specifically a bad one, and places like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, the East Coast particularly bad as well. But anyways, it's you know, hybrid work continues upward trend. Working from home continues to be an important feature of work for many Canadians, although the specific nature of the arrangement continues to shift. As of August, 16.8% of employed Canadians reported that they usually work exclusively from home, down from 18% in July and down 7.5% percentage points since the beginning of 2022. So that tells you that work from home is quickly ending for a lot of people. And what does that mean for those that bet that this was going to continue forever, which was a load of people. A load of people did that. I've had people reach out to me who've moved out to places and bought, and they're worried about being called back to the office and what's going to happen. I had one person recently who said they were being called back to the office and they had no idea what to do. And don't ask me, because I don't know what to do. Like, if you're in that situation, really, you got to figure it out yourself. But unfortunately, like, for a lot of people, that's going to be just a nail in the coffin for them, because they're really, if they bought at these absurd prices, which a lot of them did, and the prices have come down, which a lot of them have, and then they're called back to the office, well, that is real bad news for them, because if they try and sell, they're going to have to sell at a massive loss, which we know people can't afford to do. And if they are told that, they can't work from home, or they lose their job if they don't come back to the office, then they're really in trouble, aren't they? Because that essentially means it is bad news for them, because if they can't come back to the office, guess what? They lose their job, and then what are they going to do then? They're going to look for another job. They might not. A lot of these people who moved out were highly paid. They were paid city salaries. Well, you're not going to get city salaries for a remote job. Most of the remote jobs that are out there are paying way less than you would get in the city. So you have to be realistic. But a lot of people were just hoping about everything. And that really just plays into human psychology, which is always want to hope. If you're in a losing trade, you hope that it comes good, and you add to your losers, and then it loses anyway, and you get destroyed and blow up your account. This is just how humans react. We're always trying to cling to some form of hope. And I've seen it so many times, the way people, even my sister, would go to my parents and sell stuff. And I used to do it as well. You would try and sell them something, sell them an idea. And, you would just be describing all the good parts of it, and you would just gloss over all the bad parts. But the reality is, people don't grow up from that sort of mentality. This is the mentality that people stick within. And it's quite dangerous, because it can lead you to making silly, disastrous decisions, which it will for a lot of people, unfortunately. And with unemployment rising, that's going to mean more people are going to be foreclosed on, more people are going to lose their home. That is just the reality. That is just what's going to happen. We know that is the case. So the proportion of workers with a hybrid work arrangement, that is, who usually work both at home and at locations other than home, increased 0.7 percentage points to 8.6% in August. Population age 15 to 69 not seasonally adjusted. The LFS began measuring hybrid work in January 2022 and will continue to do so in the fall as employers continue to implement arrangements to resume in-office work. Wage growth reaches 5.4% in August. The average hourly wages for employees rose 5.4% on a year-over-year basis in August, compared with 5.2% in June and July. The most recent inflation data indicated that the consumer price index rose 7.6% on a year-over-year basis in July, down from 8.1% in June. So let's snap back to reality right now, because wages have gone up 5.4%. Forget their phony consumer price index, because that bears little or no impact to the actual person who is paying 20% inflation. So this is what these ridiculous numbers that they come out with, 7.6%. Yeah, right. Okay. So if you think it's more like 20%, so that means people have a net negative wage growth of 15%. And that is looking on the rosy side of things. If you look on the darker side of things, people who didn't get salary increases or got salary increases of 1 or 2%, you're talking about 17% of their purchasing power has been lost. Now, this is the reality because they can say it's 7.6%, they can say it's 1%. It does not matter because me and you, we pay the real rate of inflation out there in the real world. The government, they live in fantasy land. So whatever they think inflation is really doesn't matter that much. So with that in mind, just think about how quickly people's purchasing power is being destroyed. I mean, we haven't had levels of purchasing power being destroyed like this since the 70s, and that had a disastrous effect on the economy. So we can only hope that we have a recession from this, but it could be a lot worse. Because this time around, unlike in the 1970s, and this is where you can say, yes, it is different this time, it's very much 20 times worse, is we have about 5 to 10 times the amount of debt circulating in the economy. So people have to pay for this debt, and the inflation index is rising, means the cost of their debt rises, whether the Bank of Canada or the Fed raises interest rates or not. We've already seen that with the crash which happened in the bond market and still continues to circle around the bottom that it was at just 3 or 4 months ago. So, it doesn't matter whether they raise or lower or whatever, because the market ultimately dictates the rate of yield that people get on debt. And that is something to remember. These central planners and the government, they only have so much control over these markets. And thinking that they are the ones that decide where everything goes is just a fallacy, because they don't. The bond market is really what they follow, and the bond market is much larger than they are. And think about when they were doing QE, the bond yields were rising. They were actually buyers in that situation, but yields were actually rising. So that goes and shows, and Jeff Snyder and Emil, they talk about this a lot. That shows that they have little impact in the real OTC market. So it's interesting anyways. But yeah, that CPI number is just a joke, really, an absolute joke. And then it says down here, the participation rate, the total size of the labor force grew by 66,000, 0.3% in August, and the participation rate ticked up 0.1 percentage points to 64.8%. Among men aged 25 to 54, the participation rate increased 0.2 percentage point to 91.7%. In August, this was associated with a rise in the number of men in this age group searching for work. Okay, this is a lot of words. So I apologize. There's just so much data that we need to get through here, but I'm pretty sure it's nearly over. Oh my God, there's so much in here. Jeez, I'm gonna have to fly through this. Okay, so employment down in educational services and construction up in other services. There were fewer workers in construction, minus 28,000, minus 1.8% in August, with the decrease spread across several provinces, led by Alberta, minus 11,000 at minus 4.6%, and Ontario, minus 10,000, minus 1.6%. Despite the monthly decline, employment in construction was plus 88,000, plus 6.2% higher than in August 2021. So that goes to show that it's still up year over year. Sorry, I went the wrong way there. It's still up year over year. And construction, most of the jobs, over 35% of the jobs in construction that were lost in August were lost in Alberta. Well, that doesn't make sense because everybody's telling me that Alberta and Calgary is the new mecca, and I heard some other YouTuber saying that prices in Calgary are going to be the same price as Toronto prices. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Surely there's something going on there. If you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic. So obviously that's going to have an effect. And obviously Alberta builds a lot of homes as well, is the thing to remember as well. So Alberta lost more construction workers than Ontario. So is that telling you something about the health of developers and builders in Alberta? Maybe, maybe not. I guess we'll have to find out in the coming months. There were 15,000 plus 2.2% more working people in other services in August, following 4 months of little change. This industry includes a variety of services such as civic and religious organizations, as well as repair and maintenance services. Employment in other services in August was little change compared with 12 months earlier, and was 83,000 minus 10.2% below its pre-pandemic February 2020 level. The number of people working in professional and scientific and technical services rose a little bit. Agriculture up 3.6%, utilities up 4.2%. Employment in accommodation and food services was little changed. And what's interesting about this is the fact that they can't get workers. Why can't they get workers? Well, that is because they can't afford to pay them the amount that they want to get. The workers want more money and they can't afford to pay them that. And that is really the reality of what's going on in that, because the businesses have been absolutely damaged by what's happened in the pandemic. In my opinion, that's what's going on there. So it says here, employment down in British Columbia, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia, and up in Quebec. And then it basically says about different areas and what they're doing. And you can go and read this if you want. And then basically here, I thought this was interesting. It says both Canada and the United States see unemployment rate increases in August. While international comparisons of labour markets are challenging due to differences in concepts and comparisons between the labour market situation in Canada and in the United States can be made by adjusting the Canadian data to US concepts. My gosh, like that is a long sentence. That is a real long sentence. I had to take a couple of breaths saying that. Okay, so basically it says adjusted to US concepts, the unemployment rate for people aged 16 and older was 4.2% in Canada and 3.7% in the United States in August. So that really suggests that actually the unemployment rate in the United States is less accurate than the unemployment rate in Canada, if you could believe it. And it says even though the unemployment rate, if you adjust them to the US concept, Canada still has higher unemployment. So it's really interesting that they said that. And then it says here about the labor force participation rate, which is also interesting, which was 64.5% in Canada in August, and it's 62.4% in America in the United States, and they're also down a full percentage point below the February 2020 rate, so they're both the same. So it's very, very interesting. But what's more interesting is about people who have said that they're considering changing jobs. I mean, that is at 12%, the amount of people that are saying they are leaving their jobs. And the most common and main reason for that is people are saying that, what is it here? Salary and benefits, obviously, is the top one, followed by workplace health and safety, job security, relationship with their supervisor and colleagues. And then it says, salary and benefits was even more between employees of the core working age group, 25 to 54, and job security were particularly important, while youth aged 15 to 24 prioritized workplace health and safety and the relationships with their supervisor and colleagues. How am I not surprised that that is the case with the way that people are being brought up now? I'm just not surprised. But anyway, they would rather have a better relationship with their supervisor and colleagues than better job security. What is that? Obviously not living in the real world. And most of those people, let's face it, are living at home. So that those things are less important to them. Fewer than half, 42.3% of employees indicated that a flexible work location was important or essential. However, among employees who reported that they usually work all of that or part of their hours from home, this proportion was 67.1%. So that's a massive number, isn't it, when you really think about it? 67.1% of people who work from home see that as a massive value to them. And of course, they're going to see it if they've moved house as well. And then basically, it just says about people reaching retirement ages, 875,000 immigrants who'd arrived over the past 5 years, and basically saying how they're going to account for the people retiring, but saying that it's not going to mean it's going to work entirely. It says here, while immigration plays a vital role in supporting economic growth, many recent immigrants experience periods of unemployment as they integrate into the Canadian labour market. Although the unemployment rate for this group was lower in August 2022, 7.6%, than in any month of August since comparable data became available in 2006. It remained higher than in August 2022 rate for those born in Canada, 5%. So yeah, so again, this is showing, and there's a bunch of charts on there and everything like that. So again, this is basically showing you the risk when it comes to immigration. Those people, they typically have a higher rate of unemployment. And what does that mean for their job? What does that mean for their job security? It means it's worse than the people who are native Canadians. So there is differences there, and that means that if you're lending to a Canadian and you're also lending to a new immigrant, there is significant more risk when lending the money to that new immigrant, obviously. But the banks don't often see it that way, and this sort of lending has just been rampant throughout the past 6 years, 7 years even. So the thing is, I find that interesting because it goes with what we've said about immigrants. And I am an immigrant myself. I have zero things against immigrants. I mean, these are the people that do all the jobs on the lower end, and they typically earn the lower wages. They typically earn 30% less than your average Canadian. So, they're doing all the jobs that everybody else can't do. Without those people, the economy would be in a different place. For start off, everything would be a lot more expensive, as it would have to pay higher wages in order to force Canadians to do that job. Now, that's where the hospitality numbers are interesting, because basically that's what's happening in that industry. They can't afford to pay the higher wages. They can't even afford to pay the higher wages with the recent inflation. So they're struggling to attract anybody into that sector. So I'm just going to read you out some highlights from the BLS report in the US as well, which comes in a PDF form. It's really, I mean, it's even more, it's just kind of crazy the way they do this. It's not that great. It's worse than Canada's, which I couldn't believe. You'd expect the US's survey to be much easier and everything like that, but it's really just a word salad. Anyway, in August, the unemployment rate rose by 0.2 percentage point to 3.7%, and the number of unemployed persons increased by 344,000 to 6 million in July. These measures had returned to their levels in February 2020 prior to the pandemic. Among the unemployed, the number of permanent job losers increased by 188,000 to 1.4 million in August. The number of persons on temporary layoff was virtually unchanged at 782,000. The number of long-term unemployed, those jobless for 27 weeks or more, was little unchanged at 1.1 million. The long-term unemployed accounted for 18.8% of all unemployed persons. The labour force participation rate increased by 0.3% month over month to 62.4%, but is 1 percentage point below its February 2020 level. The employment population ratio was little changed at 60.1%, 1.1% anyway. I'll leave it at that. But basically you can see that they're kind of trending in the same direction, which makes sense because they're doing exactly the same thing. They're tightening monetary policy, they're raising interest rates. And the funny thing is, a lot of people are going to view these unemployment reports and they're going to think, wow, this means that the Fed is going to start cutting rates. This means that the Bank of Canada is going to start cutting rates. But the reality is, it actually means no, they're going to be thinking what we're doing is working. This is actually what they want, whether you realize it or not. They want unemployment to go up. They've constantly cited about the job market, and they're just looking at certain metrics, and that's part of the reason why they get all messed up on it and make the wrong decisions. But the fact is they're obsessed with the number of job openings, and that just is a bad thing to focus on. I mean, you have to take in the whole picture, and that's what they don't do. But we really don't know whether they do this purposely or they don't. That's something we'll have to think about in our own time. But anyway, we'll continue to monitor this. And does this mean, is this the start of the unemployment crisis that is coming? Well, I mean, in Canada, we haven't seen 3 months of net negative job growth since 2008. So that really tells you something about what is going on out there right now. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. You have a great weekend. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this kind of content. I'll see you on Sunday with some type of new content, be it a live stream or the video that I've had saved up. So anyway, guys, take care of yourselves. Peace. Bye-bye.